as an idiot who sort of understands some fantasy.
You had some things that you wanted to talk about best ball wise.
Yeah, dude.
Questions or, because have you ever done best ball before this offseason?
Last year, I have the same Kyle that you have is the Kyle that I have. And
yes, we share a Kyle.
We share a Kyle. And so that Kyle and I did a bunch of best ball drafts with each other, and we kind of put in a bunch of stuff. So we had I'd started to jump in, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it. I didn't spend a lot of time in it, and we didn't spend a ton of money. It was just trying to figure out the format and play something new. And this year I've been just listening to a bunch of stuff, and I love being able to do it. I did it a little bit more last year, better understanding of like how to be able to play season long from that perspective and the way that you're looking at it. And so this year has just been fun. My goal is to go in and either like max out the puppy or the little $5 guy on DraftKings if I can, and see how we can make that work. Cause I got from now until September to be able to do it. Yep. And so this is part of the question of, I got so many questions. All right. Yeah. So there's obviously, and I've watched some of your streams. I haven't watched all your streams. I apologize, but they're on in the background of my house, literally all the time.
Yes.
So I always hear your voice all day long.
I'm sorry.
No, you don't need to be sorry. It could be so much worse. But there's obviously a value to being able to drafting early, especially when you want to max out a tournament, right? But you don't want to just get stuck, I would assume, in doing all of your drafts early, because you have to be able to see the way that things sort of like play out throughout the off season, because what's a value now might not be an off season later. So when you're looking at, let's say I have 150 lineups that I can do through a tourney, how do you spread them out through now up until when the actual season starts to say, I'm going to get 20 some lineups at this time, and this will be the value. And you know what I mean?
So I've never maxed out one of the best ball drafts because I just haven't. I'll get between 50 and 75.
Okay.
But I've never said I'm going in trying to max this out. Now I could just enter 20 slow drafts at a time, right? And go after it that way, and then do 20 more, and then do fast drafts in between for shows or when I've got time, if I had the intent of maxing out an entire draft. Different drafts fill at different times. So the best ball mania, for example, that's not going to fill unless it fills like a week and a half before the season starts. So what you're talking about, a May draft is going to look a lot different from a mid to late August draft. So in that one, players are going to get values, or they're going to have empty spots because they're going to have drafted like Cam Akers last year. Or conversely, I had, at the time of that injury, I had 50% Darrell Henderson as an 11th, 12th round pick. In years prior. Tyreek Hill, the year that we didn't know, it was up in the air whether he was going to be suspended for 8 games or not. He was being drafted in the middle of drafts, round 8 to 11. He's no suspension. He's full go, first round pick.
Yeah.
So there's going to be values like that. Or Will Fuller a couple of years ago, not last year, but the year before, where early in the year he was going in the 8th, 9th round. And by the time the season got around, he was a 5th round pick. So you're going to have guys that bounce that way, right? Like some are going to increase in value. Some are going to blow their knee out, and they're going to be completely out. And it's like we've said before, best ball is a war of attrition, and you're going to lose players. And it's like, if you draft later, you're going to have better injury information, but you're still going to lose guys like Saquon Barkley or CMC last year in like week 1. And then your first round draft pick is toast anyway. So like injuries are going to happen. Everybody assumes the same injury risk on the day of the draft. The difference between different drafts, like I said, Best Ball Mania is going to last until the last week of the offseason. I don't know exactly the number. I'm sure chat will let me know, because chat is always right. Exactly how many puppy drafts there were. The first puppy filled in like 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Last year. So people were just hammering that. So I think they got 4 or 5 or 6 puppies off before the season started. So in that first puppy, it was all July drafts, because I think that started on July the 4th. Last year. This year, obviously, they started it sooner. But that thing's going to fill. And when it fills, they'll start a puppy 2, and then a puppy 3, and a puppy 4, and a puppy 5. So you're really only drafting with people who are drafting in that 2 to 4 week segment.
That window. Yeah.
Yeah. So for somebody like you who might be worried about, well, if I'm drafting now, what about somebody who drafts later and doesn't have these injuries? Or somebody who drafted way earlier who might have a distinct advantage on a value play like Henderson, like Tyreek Hill, like somebody who suddenly bounces in value. If Deshaun Watson does not have any sort of limitations or suspension, I don't think he's going to go in the 11th round anymore. He's going to go higher. So Puppy 3 and Puppy 4 drafters will not be drafting against those players at those ADPs. They will be drafting against players at current ADPs, which isn't by design. It's just the way it works out. So if you're saying you're drafting a lot of puppy drafts, that's not as much something you have to worry about as opposed to drafting BBM drafts.
Okay. So then here's another question that I have, because you talk about, I've heard you say this a bunch of times, best ball is a war of attrition. And I'm going through and looking at, as I've gotten a whole bunch of different picks within the first of 12 round draft. But when the playoffs start in week 14,
15,
and Jonathan Taylor is right that way. Is it week 15?
15, 16, 17, yeah. 14, so because the last bye week is the last week of the regular season.
And so knowing that you have Jonathan Taylor, when you have the number 1 overall pick sitting out the very final week of the season for you, like, yes, there is obviously the hope that you're not going to have to worry about it because you've built such a big league at that point. But is there anything like, do you look at do you look at bye weeks differently within best ball than the way that you do within regular season long because of that?
Sometimes, but like, I don't worry about a week 14 bye week, if that makes sense, right? Because like if he's had the season that he's supposed to have, and I've got a healthy bench, I should be all right at that point. You know, like if he has the year in 2022 that he had in 2021, it doesn't matter. I forget, weren't like the Chiefs in the final week last year? Weren't they a week 14 bye?
No, the Colts were a week 14 bye week last year.
Like there were a couple of big teams that were like week 14 or the
Eagles
in the last 2 years that were big time down the stretch guys. The thing is, the game changes. So tournament best ball, first off, is a 14-week total score, have to have the most healthy players and rip through.
Yep.
Then it becomes DFS on a lineup you had to select against 11 other people, minimum of 15 weeks prior. So imagine picking a week 15 DFS team before week 1 kicks off. That's best ball.
This is part of that question, right? Because as a, obviously I want to talk about stacking as you get into this. And I know you've gotten into a lot of these things, but, as an idiot who sort of understands some fantasy, but also wants to be like, hey, I really want to understand if I'm going to be, as we've talked about, I love being able to do these best ball drafts, even though they're a little bit different than regular, obviously season long drafts. I love being able to mock draft this way. And I put, $5 down on a mock draft and I get to see the way that, where's the industry leaning right now? Where's the values at? How are people going? And I just like being able to do that, but I want to be able to do it smart if I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And so knowing that you are going to stack, do you specifically look at those weeks 15, 16, 17 and try to stack your teams potentially around those matchups saying, I'm only playing to get to week 15 or 16 or 17. And if everything works out because I'm playing by this narrative, then this lineup is set. Or do you play by it's about getting the most points in the regular season? And like, if I have a good stack, it doesn't make a difference who they play in the playoffs because you're not going to bench Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen or pick a stack.
So there's varying viewpoints on this. One, I live under the assumption, which is the reality, I guess, that the playoffs don't matter if you ain't in them.
Okay, cool. That's how I feel too.
So that's A.
You got to make it there.
That's A. You got to build a team that can make it to the playoffs, right? So that means still building through correlation, trying to get some correlation between your quarterback and one or two of their pass catchers, having differing running backs that gives you a variety. If you're drafting a running back robust team or a zero running back team or, bell cow and chill or however you're building in that draft, build in that draft. But I don't think completely eschewing weeks 15 through 17 is a good idea either. So if I do have a primary stack that I'm building through, getting somebody or one or two pass catchers or players that might be on the other side of that stack in week 15, 16, 17, it's not a terrible idea. I'm not going to build around that one game. Well, if I get to week 17, I have this game stack ready to go. Like, I can't do that. But like if I have, team A is playing team B in week 15 and I have a stack of team A, it's like, oh, look, I could take, and it's a coin flip. I've got these 3 wide receivers to pick in this round 6 or 7 or 8. One of these guys plays against my primary stack in the playoffs. All right, I'll correlate that guy. That's the tiebreaker for me on that pick, but I'm not going to reach by a round or two on ADP just to get a correlation in week 16 that may never come into play.
Right. Okay.
But it is a tiebreaker for me.
Right. It's just like everything else. Like it factors into the decision, but it's not, doesn't do anything else. Okay. So from that standpoint, you mentioned stacking one or two players. I'm curious when you go into a stacking option based on the way that some drafts have fallen. I have not intended, intended to draft two guys from the same receiving core, but it's like, I'm not really sure which one of them is going to really pan out anyways. And I'm in a spot where I think they both are pretty good value where I'm taking them. Do you have a problem with doubling up on wide receivers in a stack, or does one of them become worthless at that? You know what I mean? Because you're okay.
Because this is where it greatly differs from transactional season long league. I don't need to pick which week they go off. Right?
It just does it for me.
Yeah. If you have, and I'm not saying to draft this stack, but this is the first one that popped in my head. If you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, right? One of them has a first round AP, one of them has a second. Burrow's like 7th round, whatever, 5th round. It doesn't matter. If you have that trio, Jamar Chase is going to have some spike weeks. Joe Burrow is going to have some 300-yard games with 3+ touchdowns. And T. Higgins is going to have some games where he has 8 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown or more. I don't care which weeks they are. I just care that I'm on them. So having that secondary guy, one of my favorite stacks, at first I thought I was going to be differentiating with this, and then I was like, oh, more people are doing it. I'm not getting that much differentiation. Was Steph Diggs in the first, then like Josh Allen in the second, then I'll get Knox, and I'll get Davis in the 5th round. I'll take Crowder in the 17th round. And just like, hey, guess what? I have the Bills offense. Because remember we talked about on 06-010 last year? Why aren't we just stacking Josh Allen 150 times every week of the year?
All the time.
Right?
Yeah.
Because he's going to have 6, 7, or 8 games where he has 30+ DraftKings points. And he's bringing somebody along with him in every one of those weeks. At least one guy, sometimes two. So why don't we just double stack Josh Allen 150 times every week, knowing that we're not going to win the Millionaire Maker every week, even if we allocate to different guys, right? But if we're getting 5, 6, 7 bites at the apple from 30 to 45 point games from Josh Allen, and let him just bring along his receivers with him and then have a bring back from the other team, wouldn't we be in a better spot to win the Millionaire Maker if we just did that every single week?
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm doing that with these teams. I've got the entire Bills offense. Sorry, passing game, not running backs. I've got the entire Bills passing game because they're going to throw it 650 times. Josh Allen's a unicorn. He's going to throw for 4,500 or more yards. He's going to run for 5 or more touchdowns. He's going to throw for 35 or more touchdowns. And I've got him and the guys who are going to get 90% of the market share of his targets.
And then you fill in everything else around
and them. Then I'll just draft whatever else in the other rounds.
All right. So given that, how often or early are you doing running backs? Because in season long, I like to be able to have a couple of guys, like I realize there'll be waivers that you can pick something you are specifically able to pick up, but you can't do that in best ball.
No.
So from that standpoint, when we're looking at running backs, like wide receivers, I figure we're taking a whole bunch of them. When I'm looking at quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, what are your minimums that you go into based on the quality or tier of players that you're getting there? Like, are you good leaving a draft with just 2 quarterbacks if you get the right 2 quarterbacks?
I mostly draft 2. So Underdog has 18 rounds.
Yep. And DraftKings does 20.
So it's a bit of a different animal on those 2 sites. So on Underdog, I'm walking out of every draft with through 17 rounds. Let me check my math. 2, 5, 8, 2. Okay. And then the last round, I'll fill in where I'm weak. If I didn't get the quarterbacks I want and I don't have a premium quarterback, I might take a 3rd quarterback. If I have an iffy quarterback, like a Deshaun Watson, who may sit for half the year, we just don't know, I'll take a 3rd quarterback. If I didn't get a tight end that I think I can lean on and I kept getting sniped for tight ends and kept waiting, I'll draft a 3rd tight end late in the draft. If my running backs are weak because I went with a 0 running back philosophy, I'll grab a backup running back and hope to hit the lottery with that final pick. But 2, 5, 8, 2 is typically my start point on both sites. And then on DraftKings, obviously that would leave me 3 more rounds. So 3, 6, 8, 3, or 3, 5, 9, 3 is typically where I end up on DraftKings.
Okay. That makes me feel, I don't want to say it makes me feel smart, but like that's sort of what I was already like just doing naturally. So I guess
people that draft like 5 quarterbacks, you can only play one of them.
That's sort of my thought process.
Yeah, one of them plays.
And the idea is when I'm looking at that third quarterback, I'm looking at the bye weeks of the first two guys that I had, and when would I potentially need them? As they're another. So as a part of that, if you do take three quarterbacks, but either way, when you're taking two, are you making sure that not making sure, but are you trying your darndest to have stacking options with both of your quarterback options?
Yes. So I did the video on premium stack quarterbacks that were my favorite that fit with guys at ADP, right? Like I'm looking for values on an entire offense. So like I want that for my QB1, and I also want that in rounds 11 through 20 for my QB2. So guys like Kirk Cousins, Zach Wilson, like everybody except for Elijah Moore has cheap ADPs on the Jets. Even if it's just a single stack, a skinny stack for your QB2, having that little bit of correlation helps.
Sure.
You know, like Christian Kirk in like the 8th or 9th round, I think is where he's going, is the most expensive Jacksonville pass catching option not named Etienne. Like I'm not expecting Etienne to have like a 20 to 25% market share, probably more around 14, 15. But he's definitely in the passing game there. So like if you're just saying I want Trevor Lawrence and two pass catchers, you can go out and get Evan Ingram in the 18th round on Underdog. You can take Trevor Lawrence in whatever round he's in, 14th round, and then Christian Kirk or MJJ and go with them as your QB2 that has upside. Second year quarterback, been in the system, high pedigree, elite talent, big prospect, all that. Maybe he throws for 25 to 30 touchdowns as your QB2 and has a couple of spike weeks.
That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
That's all you're looking for with those guys. Okay. All right. I think everything else that I have like significant questions on would be post-draft questions. So I think we should draft. And then as we look back, then I'll ask you more questions. Deal?
Yeah, it's a deal.
Hey guys, Editor Rosie here. If you're interested in seeing how the draft went down, go ahead and pause this video right here. Head on over to the Smizzle Fantasy Football channel for that video, and then come back and check out the post-draft questions.
Perfect. Now you said you might have other questions.
Yeah. How come our draft I didn't get any of the players that I wanted us to get?
Because we got sniped 74 times. That was
so
the most snipes
much.
I've had this whole draft season so far.
Oh, that was so good. Honestly, I did not dislike that team, but I do feel for sure like we got sniped in a way that there were a couple of picks that, and sometimes it just works out that way, right?
We got sniped like 6 times, which is always going to happen in best ball drafts, right? It's just going to happen.
But sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you get lucky and the right guy falls. I've loved being able to get Travis Etienne to fall to me in the 4th round.
Oh, that would have been the dream right there.
Yeah.
Getting him would have been the dream right there. Kevin 89, thank you for the 43 months. Steve Boynton, thank you for the 45 months. S Summers 55, thank you for the 26 months. No worries, Steve. Don't worry. Like we were just recording. I always will get to the subs to shout you guys out. It's never a problem.
I think I like Steve, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve does content at Run Pure Sports.
Oh, nice.
College basketball aficionado.
I thought the only college basketball aficionado that I know was Keith Lipscomb.
Look at that. Yeah. Keith knows his stuff in college basketball. College basketball DFS aficionado.
Okay, there you go. That works. So let me ask you this question.
And chat, if you have any questions for Dopp, fire them in there, and I'll
please
lob them back to him. We'll go tennis style here.
Oh, we certainly don't have to talk about just football either.
Yeah,
but we can.
Yeah.
So we took 2 Lions there.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this because understanding I know that I'm a Lions fan, and so it can be easy to be able to look at it as bias. However, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown was awesome last year, and I don't think that's questionable. And I think the upside of what Jameson Williams can be pretty fantastic. But there are potentially a lot of mouths to feed in an offense that's run by an average fantasy quarterback or below average fantasy quarterback. And so I'm curious, when you're looking at situations like that within best ball, do you look at it same with like I don't necessarily want to put Zach Wilson in that same category, but do you look at the Jets and the Lions and teams like that where you're only going to put in X number of players of investment in that team?
So I come from more of a fantasy baseball background, right?
Okay.
And Pacoda is a thing where it's ranges of outcome. So I think there are different top level percentile outcomes for Jared Goff and Zach Wilson, right? While their median, the meat of the bell curve may be quite similar. I think that the high end for Zach Wilson is that he's a stud. And the low end is that he's trash and is out of the league. And the median can't be worse than Jared Goff's median. So I would draft for upside in that position and take Wilson. But like, I know a guy and he does really good stats. I heard that there's somebody that's cosplaying him on Underdog Fantasy.
Yeah.
So on the screen, I have Mike Clay's Detroit Lions projections, and he's got Jared Goff for 3,700 yards, 25 touchdowns. He has Amon-Ra St. Brown leading the team in terms of targets with 121, and Jameson Williams with 83, which is very respectable. And considering Jameson Williams' prospect profile, I didn't think that he would have Williams ahead of Chark in terms of targets on the season, but he does.
I'm interested to be able to see how long it takes for him to come back, for Jameson Williams to be 100%. I get the feeling that he is ready and really wants to go. The Lions are in a rebuild. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's zero reason for them to rush him back at all if they are a smart franchise at all. If they've learned anything from the last 25 years of ineptitude as a franchise, they will do the right thing and realize that no matter what I want for fantasy, Jameson Williams, bring him along. And if he's not ready until week 4, then he's not ready until week 4 or week 6 or week 8. But that kid I just think he's special, and he has a chance to be something really amazing. And I don't want to say in spite of Jared Goff, because that makes it sound like Jared Goff can't be a good quarterback. But
they don't want Jared Goff to be the quarterback next year. They want one of those top 10 guys in next year's draft. Stroud, the Ohio State kid, the Alabama
Bryce
kid.
Young.
Yeah, they want those guys. They want to give up the farm to get one of those two cats.
I'll tell you what, I don't think that's what the Lions want to have happen. Like,
really?
I hear you. Yes, I hear you, because I would love to get Bryce Young, but ideally the Lions as an organization should want Jared Goff to work out so that he can stay there as a cheaper option and then use the draft capital that they got in that Stafford deal to be able to build around a quarterback. The only difference is, I feel like if you draft that rookie quarterback, you have like that 4 to 5 year window of that rookie deal where that rookie's super cheap for you. You're not going to get that when you're re-signing Jared Goff, but you're also not going to be paying $40 million a year like you are for everybody else. So there's a little bit of a payoff, I think, between those two. But
now,
anyways,
the other side of this, again, Mike's projections are median projections. And there's nothing wrong, because when you make projections, you have to make median projections. That's what projections are.
That's what projections are.
He has Zach Wilson for slightly more yards and 2 less touchdowns, but 4 on the ground, where Goff he's got him projected for 1. Now, let's dial this up to like a 75th percentile instead of the 50th percentile. Dial that up to an 80th percentile. If Zach Wilson is the deal, if he lives up to his prospect profile, and let's say he's a young version of like a Brett Favre style, not Brett Favre, but a Brett Favre style of quarterback who's just going to fling it downfield, he has the weapons to do that with Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. He has 2 good tight ends to block, to throw underneath to. Corey Davis is an extremely polished professional wide receiver at this point. Breece Hall, we know Michael Carter can be amazing out of the backfield catching the ball, but Breece Hall also no slouch in the passing game himself, and they beefed up that offensive line as well. I would not be shocked to see Zach Wilson take a big leap honestly, I'm not buying. I mean, I may, but I haven't been buying rookie cards or anything. But Zach Wilson is somebody I would invest in right now. If I wanted to go buy some PSA 10 rookies, I'd be buying Zach Wilson, because he's never going to get he's cheap right now. Like, if he gets cheaper, he's just going to be a bust and he's never going to go up. But if he is not a bust, the price is going to absolutely skyrocket. The downside you're buying into, and the upside is limitless if he's actually #good.
I did sort of black out when you compared him to Brett Favre, but I did eventually came back in and heard some of the words you were saying, and I do agree with most of what you're saying, because he doesn't
care where he throws it. He's just going to throw it. Like, guys like that just think that I can get this ball there, and they're not like, that's not a window. He's like, everything they see is windows. He's like, my arm is strong enough, I'm gonna get it there.
It's a window. Yeah.
That's
the way when I played with my buddy Russell Wilson a couple years ago, that's the way that he sort of threw it. Did our Wounded Warrior project.
I know. Look at there.
Hey, by the way, I just want to say that fake Mike Clay took 5 quarterbacks in the draft that C. Jevy was with him in. Is that true? Here's what I want to say about this. So the underdog that I've done over the last couple of days. Sorry, I keep sitting up and sitting down in my seat. I have ADD. I think
I do the same thing.
So we were driving to go visit my parents back in Michigan over Memorial Day weekend. And so while we were driving through states, Rosie specifically was driving through states. And mind you, we left at 9:30 p.m. and didn't get into Michigan until 11 a.m. So we drove straight through the night. I was trying to draft in states that I had access to Underdog. And I know for a fact there were a couple times where I got in, drafted, and then fell asleep, but by accident woke up and either the draft had completed or I was like way deep into it.
And you were doing 30-second drafts?
For those ones, I was doing 30-second drafts because I was just
nodded off in the middle.
I was trying to stay awake as best I could, but then I was trying to because I wanted to be awake for Rosie, but then I was trying to sleep at the same time, and I wasn't Yeah, and I only have a window.
Don't go together. You can't be awake and asleep at the same time.
I know. It's true. It's true. Dude, I freaking love best ball though. Like this has been a ton of fun to be able to dive into, other than outside of just like doing the show with you. Like I've really had a lot of fun just as a new format and as a different format, knowing that the investment down the line is going to be nothing, but I still get to have the fun of drafting right now, which is what it's all about. I freaking love it.
So I played fantasy football since I was 13, right? So like this is like year 37.
Sure.
I've been playing forever. And the best part of playing fantasy football in your friends and family league or anything else is always the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And because of what I do and cranking content like 7 days a week, 6-7 days a week during football season, and playing for so much money in daily fantasy, the volume on wanting to do stuff transactionally during the week got turned down so much that I'm not putting in waiver claims. I would forget to do am I going to pay attention to putting in a lineup on Sunday morning, or am I going to try and win $1 million on Sunday morning?
Yeah.
So that's where my attention went. So then when best ball, when I was introduced to it, and it's funny because my first year doing best ball, I believe, was my first year at ESPN in 2015. And I was just all in. It was like MFL 10s at the time were like the only way that you could play best ball. So I was doing all these drafts and all these slow drafts. And I was like, I get to do my favorite part of fantasy football, which is the draft, strategizing, building teams, and all of that, with none of the babysitting of a roster, none of the waiver claims. I don't have to hear bogus trades from people that are like, what if, I could get Barry Bonds and Ken Griffey Jr. and I wouldn't have to give up all that much. It's like, I don't want to deal with that anymore. So I get all the good stuff, none of the bad stuff, and I still get to play daily fantasy. So for me, it's the absolute perfect way to play fantasy moving forward.
That investment, it helps because you don't have to worry about that. Like you said, that daily transactional, when you're in regular play.
And the time investment isn't all that big to draft. Where like to do an in-person friends and family draft, that's a 2, 3, 4 hour thing.
And you get together hopefully and have fun with it, whether it's in person or you're all over Zoom or Skype or whatever. And
I'm hanging out, relaxing on the couch with nothing to do for an hour. I'll fire up a draft. All right, let me do a fantasy football draft. You do 10 slow drafts, 20 slow drafts at a time, where you just get pinged and you have 8 hours. Okay, I got a couple of seconds. All right, I'll take him. Right?
Yep.
So it's not really consuming your entire day, even for the drafting, with his money. Like, there's no way you could manage 150 in-season teams. So best ball, you get to do 150 drafts and you don't have to manage. So like there's this, it's just different. We're an on-demand society at this point. If I want food, I punch a few buttons on my phone and somebody brings me food in 30 minutes. If I want to watch a show, my kids don't know what commercials are. Like they do because they watch YouTube, but to them commercials last 5 seconds and they hit skip.
I'm not sure it totally works. Rosie, I want food.
Ma, the meatloaf.
It didn't work. It didn't work for the record. It didn't work. I think I'm actually going to get talked to later. That's what I think happened.
Yeah, here comes. You're going to have a Tommy Pham moment later.
That's what's going to happen. Yeah.
So, like, other than that, like, what's your? You said you wanted to max out the puppy or the $5 on DraftKings.
And part of that is being able to look at. So there's, based on where you're at, because we don't get to pick where we draft.
No.
I've had a lot of drafts where it feels like I'm able to get a lot of the guys that I like in that same area. How much are you worried about overexposure, and how much do you diversify based on, even though I don't really love this guy, I got to have at least a couple shares of him somewhere.
Yeah. So Underdog does, this is a multifaceted. Give me a couple of seconds to think about it. But like Underdog 1, I'm not trying to like bag on DraftKings, but Underdog at least gives you like your exposure, right?
Okay.
So you can click on your drafts and it'll give you how much of players you have. So a quick look at mine. This is through 13 drafts, so it's really not worth all that much. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Irv Smith, I have 54% Irv Smith. I have 54% Ezekiel Elliott. 46% Corey Davis as a wide receiver 71.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
So like remember I said Hayden Hurst, 46% Hayden Hurst. Because to me, the guys that I end up with a lot more of are the guys that I draft from rounds 11 through 20.
Right.
Because you find your comfort spots, your comfy blanket, and they're available, and you'll just take them. You're gonna get a wider range, a narrower band on the high draft picks, right? So like Ezekiel Elliott, I've been clicking him a lot because I was clicking him when he was in the 4th, 5th round, and it's like I'm not passing up on Ezekiel Elliott. And now he's the RB 16. I was drafting him as the RB 20 to 22.
Yep.
So I got him at a discount. But like all the other guys at the top, it's like Leonard Fournette, 23%. Like the high guys, you're not going to because they're going to fall differently. Wide receiver, right. I probably have a lot of Steph Diggs. I do. I have 30% Steph Diggs, which means that I probably have about 30% Josh Allen, 23% Josh Allen. But as you can see, I'm focusing on premium quarterbacks like Russ Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. I've got one Mahomes. But like most of the guys I have multiplicity on at quarterback is different from the guys I have multiplicity on at running back and wide receiver, where I'm clicking those guys late. No, Bill. No, not restarting my computer. Bill Gates always reminds me to restart.
Sometimes he says, please restart.
Now would be the time. I need like an app built that if OBS is on, mute Microsoft alerts. I need an if-then statement built in to my Microsoft alerts that if this thing says streaming, don't do that thing.
Can we do that?
Dallas Jayhawk, damn it. I just looked at my computer.
Rosie, can you build out this thing? She was a software engineer programmer.
Oh, really?
She did something before.
Look at there. Yeah, I need that. So,
I think she's stomping hard. I shouldn't have done this.
I should not have. I immediately regret this decision. So like that's how I've been kind of drafting early. But like
I asked you if you could help Al build a program so that when he's running OBS, he doesn't get Windows firewall update. An if-then statement. We're live on stream. Everyone wants to know about it. I hope you're not sponsored by Microsoft, Al. Do you know what your sales obligations are before you start just throwing companies under the bus? It's one of the things you got to learn real quick.
It's all right. Twitch is an Amazon company.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And YouTube is Google. So we're all good.
We're all set.
Yeah,
so
we're all good.
Good.
Yeah, so like that's where like DraftKings doesn't give you that allocations spreadsheet, so you'd have to like go through and make it for your own teams. I don't mind having like I'm willing, especially in early drafts, May, June drafts, to be overweight on players that I am confident about being cheap on ADP.
Sure.
It's why I had 48% Darrell Henderson at the time that Cam Akers went down last year. Now I ended up with like 24%, but all of my exposure to him was in the 11th round.
So you know that the value where you were getting him was value.
Yeah.
And the idea that regardless of how much that exposure is, it's not about the amount of exposure necessarily, although it's a factor, just like everything is always factors in, but it's about the value that you get at that player. And it's like, well, if that's where he's at, you just can't say no to it.
Yeah.
I mean,
but like I'm attacking this year more so than in years past. I'm attacking premium quarterback and stacks where I've been a mid to late round quarterback drafter primarily in previous years, with the exception of like, oh, look, if I get to pick at the turn and I get Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, then I'm clicking Patrick Mahomes if he falls to me at the 3-4 turn. Where this year it's like, okay, if I get in the middle of the second round, if Mark Andrews is there and I think he's amazing, I'm going to take him. And then the 5th round or 4th or 5th round, I'm taking Lamar Jackson when I take Mark Andrews. And then I'll see if I can get Bateman.
That's see, and this is how I feel like it's worked out. Not every single time, but I love being able to see the puzzle of take Mark Andrews in this round, X number of rounds later, you're trying to like finagle it so that you can get Lamar. And then a couple rounds after that, you can also try and get Rashad Bateman. And you just hope that it all like works out in this layer. In some drafts it does, in some drafts it doesn't. But like, I don't know. It's really fun when you have a draft that works out where a lot of your things like playing out that way. And you're like, oh man, this is cool. Now I wait for 12 months to see if anything happens.
But you don't even have to think that way because then you get to do it. The other thing, did you know, I don't know if you've seen if you watched the stream when I was doing this, but like you can go to drafts, this one.
Under Underdog or DraftKings?
For Underdog. Can't do this on DraftKings. You can click on the team. So this one, I drafted Travis Kelce at pick 12, Hayden Hurst at pick 181. And then at 36, I got Patrick Mahomes. I can go here. I click the I up here at the top of the screen. 12-person draft, Mahomes/Kelce. Now that draft, instead of saying Best Ball Mania, or puppy, now I know what that team looks like. So in the season, when I'm looking through my teams, I'm like, oh, let me see how this team's doing.
Yeah, that's dope.
Right? Like you can name your drafts. This isn't a really bad team. I mean, my wide receiver one is, I waited a while to get my wide receiver one, but I've got Travis Kelce, Mahomes, Mixon, Elliott, CEH, Moore, Cooks, Kirk, Tony, Lazard, Davis, Landry at pick 133.
I love, honestly, like, I mean, Jarvis Landry and Marvin Jones, both not sexy names. They're going to do stuff. Alan Lazard could be the number one wide receiver for an Aaron Rodgers led offense. And you got him at pick 109.
He could have 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns.
And double-digit touchdowns. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Like nothing like obscene. He's not going to have like 1,700 yards.
No, but if he has 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, because it's ridiculous to just assume that a rookie out of North Dakota State is going to come in and just take over Devontae Adams' role. Like, I don't know. I think that's a great pick. I love Alan Lazard, being able to get him late there.
I think there are certain quarterbacks who are system quarterbacks. I also think there are certain quarterbacks who are superstar quarterbacks regardless of system. And I think that there are certain quarterbacks who are trust quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are trust quarterbacks. When they trust somebody, they are just going to throw them the ball in whatever situations there are. Brady finds Gronk. Brady didn't like Rojo. Rojo doesn't get to play. Get him off my field. Get him out of my huddle. Put Lenny back in.
I want more Leonard Fournette.
And Lenny has the massive year. So like the problem that I think a lot of fantasy football players get into is trying to be talent evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
And while that helps, right? Like knowing who a good player is important, because if they get a situation where they get playing time, then you know that guy is going to excel. But the playing time part is the more important part. Mm-hmm. Instead of being a talent evaluator or trying to bust your ass to be a talent evaluator all the time about everything, I can't pick this guy because I think this other guy is a better talent. Rojo is better than Leonard Fournette. I don't care. Which one's going to be on the field? Tony Pollard is better than Ezekiel Elliott. Here's all these stats to prove it. Which one's getting 70% of the snaps and touches? That's the one I want. You know? So people get locked up in this rookie, like we know Alan Lazard is like average, right? He's a professional. He's going to have a contract, but like he's not an all-pro. He is a solid professional football player.
Yep.
But like this rookie could be a boat. We don't know. You know how much I've always wanted a boat? Like people get trapped looking for the boats. They're not willing to draft just the good professional guys in high volume roles.
How do you feel about, just because you brought up Zeke and Tony Pollard and these guys, how do you feel about having insurance backs within best ball? Are you looking at having other players insurance backs rather than grabbing Tony Pollard and you get Dalvin Cook early? Do you make sure that you grab Alexander Mattison? Because yes, he's not going to play, but of the 2 weeks that Cook misses, he will be probably slotted into your lineup because he'll be one of your top 2 scoring running backs that week.
So I don't handcuff.
Okay.
Because I want upside.
And there's not upside from that perspective.
You're using 2 roster spots on one player, right?
So are we not doing that with wide receivers though? Like when you take Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams, or you
get more spots to use them. And 2 receivers can have a good game way more on the same team way more often than 2 running backs. The receivers are both going to be on the field. It's like, look at it from a baseball perspective. Like everybody wants to play shortstop when they're a kid. But when you're talking about, do you want to be a good high school player? They play 3 outfielders at a time. They only play 1 shortstop.
Right.
They play 3 wide receivers every play. They play 1 running back. So like it happens, and it probably happens more in a team like Cleveland that runs the ball 40 times a game between their 2 running backs, where both of them can have an excellent day. But Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine aren't having a massive day on the same day very often. It's happened once, I think, with Ezekiel Elliott and Pollard, but Pollard's big days come when he's out. So with my other picks, I want somebody where my main guy can be on the field, and then that other guy, that 40% guy that I'm drafting, turns into an 80% guy.
Right.
So like I will draft Cook or Madison, but I won't draft Cook and Madison. And then it just comes down to are they, Madison's fine at ADP and Cook's fine at ADP. Ezekiel Elliott is fine at ADP and Pollard is also fine at ADP, but I'm not going to use 2 roster spots on one because it's rare that they're both going to start for you in the same week in best ball.
In the same week.
Yeah.
Whereas within wide receivers, you could have 2 wide receivers start in the same week because sometimes I could just 2 guys that go off.
Of course.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. Like if your quarterback throws for 4 touchdowns, there's plenty of catches and throws 50 passes and 4 touchdowns and 300 yards. There's 2 guys could have 100. T. Higgins and Chase can both have 25 points in the same week. And it happens very often on DraftKings, but not as much for the running backs. So we draft for upside here.
I'm in on that.
Yeah.
This has been so much fun, dude.
Yeah. Thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate
this
it.
Again. Let's
Definitely.
do, I'm going to try and we'll figure out, I'm going to have you on Focus one of the times this offseason before we get into stuff. And maybe we'll either break down best ball or DFS. I don't know, because we can't really talk about a lot of DFS stuff, but like best ball is sort of like season-long DFS.
Can we talk about best ball? Like we could do like an episode. I'm not telling you how to do an episode of 06010, but like
no,
ESPN doesn't have a best ball product. So like, are we allowed to talk about best ball?
I don't know why.
I don't know if this is something you want to talk about on air either.
Well, I'm not really worried about that.
Okay.
I don't see why we wouldn't talk about best ball. Best ball is a game that a lot of people play within an industry, and even though our platform doesn't currently offer it, it doesn't mean that there aren't.
You don't have Dynasty either, right? You guys did a Dynasty show last week. Oh, you do have Dynasty now. Okay.
We do have Dynasty. Yep. Keepers and a whole bunch of new stuff.
Keepers, I know you had. We used to run our league on ESPN, and they were always.
But we've added a whole bunch of new stuff, more than just keepers. Now we're doing a whole bunch. But best ball is not, unfortunately, a game that we offer at ESPN. But a lot of people play it, and it's another way that like to get more people involved in the industry. Like the more people we have, I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
I listen to more than one band. You know what I mean? I don't listen to just one band all the time.
I eat at more than one restaurant. See, I had to go food because I'm a fatty.
That's like, let's just be honest. We can decide to do that and still be company men at the same time. So.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm in. If you want to do a best ball show and a DFS show or combine them in one, I'm fine with doing either.
Love it, man. All right, I have to run. Thank you so much for having me and to chat, for being nice to me for the most part.
Yeah, except for the only time that 2 running backs from the same team have a great game is if their team is playing against the Lions.
The Lions, yeah, I didn't appreciate that. I just decided not to. I was just gonna let it go.
Squash is a good guy, so like he's needling you, not being a troll. There's a difference.
That's the way that's what chat should be. I'm all in.
See, I live in Detroit.
That's so good.
All right, man. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Hey, buddy. Appreciate you, dude.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later.
I love you, man. See you, dude.
Bye.
He's a legend.